So, with stage 4, we're halfway through the game now. Actually, the Famicom and NES version is considerably longer than the arcade version. In the arcade version, these stages are really short, and a lot of them kind of seamlessly transition into each other, so it feels like they are the same stage, although they are technically still considered separate. Like, I think from this point on, all the levels are really just one seamless area in the arcade version. Area 5, Snowfield, once again has visual differences. Again, the trees are animated in this version, but also there's a snowstorm in the foreground. Now, a lot of people say that that makes the game harder. I personally never thought that, because people say that the snowflakes blend in with the bullets, but most of the bullets in this game are red. The only bullets that really blend in are your own bullets when you have the regular pea shooter, and you don't need to be able to see those, really. Alright, so there's a rapid fire power-up. One thing I should probably mention about rapid fire power-ups is, once you collect a rapid fire, it doesn't carry on to other weapons that you pick up after that point, even if it's the same weapon that you already had. So, if I found another spread gun, right? Oh. Okay, so now that I have the regular gun, now the bullets actually look... in fact, I think it's actually the exact same sprite. But yeah, let's say, for example, you have a spread gun, and you get a rapid fire power-up for that spread gun, and then you find another spread gun. Don't pick it up, because it cancels out the rapid fire. And speaking of the devil, while I was saying that I got a spread gun and a rapid fire for it, and there was also a screen nuke. You couldn't really see it properly because I picked it up pretty much immediately after I shot it out of the capsule, but those flashing eagle things, they kill everything on screen when you collect them. So I was talking earlier about misinformation or misconceptions about the Japanese version. Some sites, like the Cutting Room Floor, claim that these tanks work differently between versions. Like in the American version, they start coming at you after a certain time, right? Well, supposedly, in the Japanese version, it's not time-based, but they start charging at you once they change color for the first time. Now, I've done some testing in both versions, and I can confirm that that is not true. They behave exactly the same in both versions. Like right there, you saw that? It started moving before it changed color. There's your proof. I've tested this. Even if you just stand there and don't shoot at all, they will still come at you after a certain amount of time. It doesn't matter. Okay, never mind. Maybe the snowstorm does make it harder to see, because I totally didn't see that bullet until it was too late. Oh, fuck. That happens a lot in this area, when the item is too far to the left for you to be able to still collect it, even though it's still visible on the screen. Notice how in some areas of this level, the background is entirely black and with no stars, whereas in some other areas there are stars in the background. That's because some of the sprites use more than 4 colors, or look like they use more than 4 colors, but the black is actually just transparency. So if they would put stuff in the background, that would shine through. That's also in other levels, but it's most notable in this one. So notice how he says communication will now be impossible. Remember that sentence, because in the later cutscenes, you'll get a different animation from Bill Riser, where instead of talking into the walkie-talkie, he'll just be shooting his gun. Alright, Area 6, Energy Zone. I think this is probably the hardest level in the game. This one doesn't have any regional differences, well, not any that are specific to this level, like, you know, additional animation or the like. But I'm just gonna show off one thing. If I pause the game, in this version the animation continues. In the Western version it doesn't. So this level has a bunch of these guys behind turrets. They take a few more hits than most regular enemies. And, oh yeah, there, I just died because there are a few different things that you have to pay attention to at the same time. But the main reason this level is difficult is because of these flamethrowers there. Now this jump can be a little tricky, you have to kind of bait the flamethrower into shooting and then jump at the correct moment. You can also go the bottom road, but that jump isn't much easier, because again, you have to kind of bait the flamethrower, and also it's a much wider jump. So while you're jumping up on these ledges here, make sure you let go of down on the D-pad before jumping. I know this sounds obvious, but I used to mess this up as a kid, and then I would drop back down to the flamethrower below me. This one you're supposed to go down below, but you can totally cheese it and just jump over. You have to pay attention though to time it right in order to not accidentally jump into the bottom flamethrower. It's also possible to kind of do the whole thing in one jump and collect the invincibility power up like in midair, because that's what I just picked up. That's why I'm blinking. That's why I'm running through everything. That was an invincibility power up. It ran out now. It's a letter B, which stands for barrier. I'm closing in on the end of the stage, and right now I have the laser weapon, which the problem with the laser is you can only have one shot on screen at the same time. Alright, so the boss of this stage is this guy who throws Beyblades at you. Don't you know you're supposed to use a launcher for those? But yeah, when you have the laser, which I now don't anymore because I just got hit and now I have the regular gun again. But if you have the laser and there's already a shot on the screen and you try to shoot another one, the previous one disappears. Which is why you definitely don't want to mash the button when you have that weapon. Although, like I said earlier, you shouldn't probably do that anyway. Although when you are closer to the enemy, that's when you also get to mash the button faster, because that's when the bullets disappear faster, so you can have more on the screen. Or not more on the screen, but you can shoot more without them not spawning. So from this point on, the cutscenes have a different animations for Bill, and once again, there's also a different version for the second player, for Lance, and this is what that looks like. Okay, so another thing about the story that was changed, not necessarily the story, but the enemy names. In the American version, Red Falcon is the name of the final boss. In the Japanese version, Red Falcon is the terrorist organization that you're fighting. So basically the plot is aliens came to Earth and started brainwashing all the humans. So that's why you're fighting humans in this game. They're brainwashed by the aliens, and that organization of the aliens and the humans, the whole army that you're fighting, basically everyone who's an enemy in this game is a member of Red Falcon. But Red Falcon is not one person or alien like is claimed in the American storyline. So the boss at the end of the game that the US version claims is Red Falcon is a member of Red Falcon, but he is not Red Falcon. Makes you wonder if the localizers did all these random changes on purpose, or if they just read somewhere that, oh, you're fighting Red Falcon, and then just assumed that that's the name of the final boss. Either way, whether it's done on purpose or not, complete incompetence on the localizers' part. The one saving grace is that the localizers came to their senses at some point. The newer Contra games have more accurate translations, and this shit, the original localization is not canon anymore. But the damage has been done. People now think that the alien's name is Red Falcon, and unfortunately there will always be people who think that. Okay, so this is a spread gun. That capsule I just missed was a spread gun. And the one before was a machine gun, so I just missed the two best weapons in the game. But that spread gun is actually really easy to miss, even if you hit the capsule. If you don't hit it at the right time, it will drop down on the bottom path, and you really don't want to go the bottom path. The bottom path is one troll move of game design, because you know how throughout the whole stage there are these claw things that come down, those ones. All the other ones in the stage, they're timed at a rhythm, and you're supposed to go through them, you know, like this. But then there's the bottom path of that part earlier, where there's claws that look exactly like that, but work completely differently. Instead of having a set rhythm, they always come down immediately when you are below them. So the only way to get past there is to jump over the claws. So now I have had the flame power up, which is often overlooked, but it has a nice range to it. It's wider than your regular bullets. So this boss is really not hard at all if you know what you're doing. really just stand to the right there and shoot that cross thing, and then when the people come in from the left, go and shoot them. You can also shoot the turrets at the bottom for extra points, but you don't really need to do that. Okay, this cutscene is actually mistranslated in this fan translation. It's not really a big deal, but where it's supposed to... But where it says, what is this place? It's actually supposed to say, just what is the enemy? So last level, Alien's Lair. This is probably the one that looks the coolest in the Japanese version compared to the international one. Because all the intestines of the alien are pulsating. So not only is it pulsating, but it's actually getting faster the closer you get to the heart at the end. And even when you're fighting the heart, the more damage you do, the faster it gets. But then when you destroy it, that's when it stops. And it's actually a different graphic though. None of the frames of animation in the Japanese version are actually the same as what you see in the American version. So yeah, I've already said it, but the final boss in this game, the boss at the end of this level is a heart. Like I said before, in the American version, that is Red Falcon. And in the American version, the heart and that head thing that I just fought are implied to be the same entity, just two different parts of Red Falcon. But in the Japanese continuity, they're two separate beings known as Emperor Demon Dragon God Java and Heaven King Demon Breeding Heart Gomeramos King. Now, I don't remember where I heard this, but many years ago I remember hearing in somebody's YouTube video that there used to be apparently people who thought that the final boss was a brain instead of a heart. Well, like even in the American version, I think it's blatantly obvious that it's a heart. So I don't know where they got that idea. But the Japanese version makes that even more obvious, but both by the fact that it's literally called Evil Heart, and also the fact that there's blood pumping that keeps getting faster the closer you get to it, and when you kill it, the pumping stops. And I gotta say, this is probably the creepiest look that I've ever seen in an 8-bit video game. Like, I've heard people say that they got creeped out by this, even in the American version without the whole blood pumping. If only those people knew about this version. Alright, facehuggers means we're at the end of the last level, and here's the final boss. Now, because the American version doesn't have the pulsating animation, they just changed the entire the walls in this area to be like the broken eggs that you saw earlier in the like mid-boss section. And that's actually closer to what it looks like in the arcade version, because the arcade version of the stage looked totally different. There was none of this intestine shit going on. And those bottom two facehugger spawners, I shot them dead now, but when they're closed, they actually have a little bit more shading in the American version. And when they're open, there's two incorrectly colored pixels in the American version for some reason. Note how the Japanese version has a different jingle at the end. That's an adaptation of the one that plays in the arcade version, while the American NES version just has the same stage end jingle as in any other stage. Also, the transition effect, where it faded to black, was different. That part of the ending cutscene just now, where I got into the helicopter, is also exclusive to the Japanese version. But I guess in order to make up for that, or for the lack of any kind of cutscenes or story introduction at all, the American version added a part to the credit scroll, or rather, before the credit scroll, it does a little extra text where it says, "Congratulations, you've destroyed the vile Red Falcon and saved the universe. Consider yourself a hero." Also, the Japanese version has like a little letterbox effect during the credit scroll that the American version doesn't. So anyway, Contra, one of my favorite games on the Famicom or on the NES, although obviously I like the Famicom version better if you couldn't tell. Definitely play this game if you haven't already. So that's the end of Contra for the Famicom, but that doesn't mean that this Let's Play is over. I'm gonna do a few more episodes where I'm gonna go through a few more subsequent loops where it gets harder. And there are a few more things that I want to talk about, specifically the fact that the Japanese and American versions are not the only versions that exist of this game. There is a third one, and if you've been watching this Let's Play and thinking, wow, Americans got robbed. Well, wait until you hear what they did for the European version, which I'm going to talk about in the next episode. Also, this version has the proper Konami logo, while the American one just says presented by Konami in the regular font.